Hi, thanks for joining us today. Organic Approach, Eric Morgan, and I've been asked to opine on the topic of the best organic fertilizer for vegetables. Um, so instead of like going in the front end, I want to come in the back door on this topic because I actually think that you wouldn't be asking the question about what the best organic fertilizer for vegetables is if you did not care about the quality of the output of your efforts growing said vegetables. So, we're going to talk about the vegetables and what it is we want to achieve first and foremost. And then once we get that in our heads, then we can say, okay, which organic fertilizers help us achieve that goal? All right. And so, the goal from my perspective, and again, I'm only talking about from my perspective, somebody else might feel differently. Good value organic vegetable is a vegetable that is going to have a very high uh, density of nutrients. So, shooting for high nutrient density because we want to eat that stuff, right? We want to get lots of bioavailable nutrition to fuel our bodies with good health and good immunity, right? That's kind of the goal. Sharp acuity, all that kind of stuff. So, we want healthy, truly healthy fruit. And the way to get there is to affect the plants that we're growing, the vegetable plants that we're growing, with products that will get to that end goal of high nutritional density. Well, if you're using a chemical fertilizer, right? Chemical fertilizers got like NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and a bunch of filler, and that's what you're paying for. And the filler, God knows what's in that. Okay, so but when you're using a truly high quality organic fertilizer, in theory, at least in your head, what you should be shooting for is organic fertilizers, whether they're dry or liquid or soluble powder, that are going to impart uh, lots of diverse nutrition, lots of micronutrients, lots of trace elements, and not necessarily a lot of NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So we really want those trace elements and those micronutrients for nutritional density. And that's the phrase. That's really the catchphrase. That's what we're looking for. Because if you have high nutritional density, you're going to have high sugars, or as growers or farmers refer to as high brix content, BRIX, brix. So that also, by the way, is going to assist you in retarding disease and insect attack. So wrapping this all back to the fertilizer question, so healthy fruit, fewer insects and diseases, right? High nutritional density, healthy you and me eating that fruit. But then what we want is we want those organic fertilizer products that are going to impart or assist in the accumulation of high nutritional density. So, organic fertilizers, dry granular, soluble powder, liquid concentrates. So, I said a couple things there. So, I said that those products need to help impart this nutritional density, but I also implied that those products also need to help the plant to assist its own assimilation of that nutritional density. So, well, how does a plant do that? Well, it takes up nutritional attributes from the soil all the time, whether you and I are involved or not. So, helping the plant to assimilate that nutritional density sometimes is just using the right ingredients, organic fertilizers, if you will, that will enhance the plant's ability to take up that nutritional density, not just the organic fertilizers giving nutrient like a vitamin you might take in the morning, not just like that, but helping the plant to actually get it uh, from the soil better and more efficiently. Okay, so let's talk about a granular organic fertilizer. I'm a firm believer for a crop cycle. Let's say that crop cycle is uh, watermelons. I'm a firm believer that as you plant that crop, you use a granular, slow release, really full bodied, highly diversified granular organic fertilizer. A great example of that fertilizer would be our organic approach, Carbo Grow 3-0-3. And you say, well, there's not that much nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium, hardly any phosphorus in there, right? So why would that be good? Well, it's good because it's got like 25 different ingredients in every single homogeneous granule. So how many fertilizers do you know bring that to the table, right? So you put that in furrow or in the row where you're planting your watermelon seeds, etc., plants, whatever, starter plants, and it's completely non-burning because it's virtually 100% insoluble, and it's not high in salts, so it's not going to burn from a sodium nitrate or natural nitrate of soda or soluble salts perspective. It's really gentle, and it's just going to release throughout the entire crop cycle just this drip, 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 drip of nutrition. Well, where does that nutrition come from in a Carbo Grow 303 organic certified granular fertilizer? It comes from the fact that you are not feeding the plant, because that's a complete misnomer anyway. Plants feed themselves, we don't feed them. But what you're doing is you're actually putting a granular organic fertilizer, which is super diverse in its background, down for the organisms to feed on. And now you grow out the biodiversity of the soil, meaning the numbers of different types of organisms and the sheer numbers of each organism. Now these organisms are all munching on this granular fertilizer for this whole crop cycle throughout the coming year. And they are literally all basically dropping cow patties, except microscopic cow patties, and out in your soil. And those cow patties are the quote unquote fertilizer. And that fertilizer gets taken up as nutritional ingredients that are then used after they pass through the vascular system into the chloroplast in the leaves. That is where the plant feeds itself, and it does so by executing the process that we all know, photosynthesis. And but remember, all we're doing is providing ingredients to bake a cake. That's it. The cake gets baked in the oven known as the chloroplast, and the output is the cake. And that's where the sugar comes from. Photosynthate, carbohydrate, sugar, a byproduct of photosynthesis. So when you ask what's the best organic fertilizer for vegetables, I would argue that if you're using a granular product, I actually suggest you use multiple tactics. But the granular product, one time, beginning of the year, in the row, let it do its thing, let it decompose, let the microbes break it down, release their microbial cow patties, quote unquote, and that nutrition goes up the vascular system to the chloroplast, does its thing. At the same time, throughout the growing cycle, you are using high nutrient density foliar applications if you are able to spray foliar applications. And I would recommend a couple different products. One that would be in every single spray that I employ throughout the course of the year is a product called Hyphalink Nourish, because it is a highly, highly diversified product. And being handed to me right now, this is an example of a 1 pound bag, I think. And the hyperlink Nourish is kind of what I would call the foundation of your program, because you can't build a nice home without a good solid foundation, right? We want to build that house on rock, right? We don't want to build it on sand. So this is the rock. This is how you build your foundation. If you start with this and you're just like 2 times a week, if you can only do 1 time a week, okay. If you can only do 1 time every 2 weeks, that's your business. But using less more often is always better, because you do what we call spoon feeding. Again, I hate that word feeding, because we're not feeding the plant feeds itself through photosynthesis, right? But spoon applying this material in dribs and drabs. And the reason you do that is because if I say to you, let's take a Thanksgiving meal, and you're going to go to all the in-laws' houses and you start Thanksgiving Day at your house and you have 3 huge meals by the end of the day, are you possibly going to take in all that nutrition by the end of the day? No, it's all going to pass through, is what it's going to do. But if you do it in dribs and drabs, those 3 big meals over a week, you're going to really assimilate all of that nutrition. That's why you want to use this. This is the foundation building block. On top of this, now you can say, this is your soluble powder organic fertilizer. I call it a biostim cocktail. But now what you can do is you can select from a couple of traditional organic NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium fertilizers, and that ices your cake, and you should only use them as icing. The Carbo Grow underground, this as a foundation spray constantly throughout the season. Now you just use an NPK product to ice your cake. And one example of that is this is a product called Encourage 1104. And this is also a soluble powder. It's a great product. It's got some N, not P, no phosphorus. I'll get to that in a minute. And K. So we've got nitrogen and potassium in here, 11-0-4, 0 being the phosphorus. We have both an organic version of this and an all natural version, and we'll get into what those two different terms mean in a later video. But that said, if you want phosphorus, I would use like a hydrolyzed fish product. And we have a hydrolyzed fish product as well called Nature's Essence FH231. That would give you your phos at certain times of year for certain physiological requirements in the plant, okay? Like fruiting or rooting or whatever, okay? But this is a great example. If you combine these two together, when you want some extra nitrogen or potassium or both, you put this with the Hyperlink Nourish. This is a great way to get so-called the best organic fertilizer approach for vegetables. The granular in the soil one time, beginning of the year, it lasts all season long. Remember, we're getting a highly diversified product to give you highly diversified nutrition heading up for the process of photosynthesis. Then you come in the top of the plant through the leaves with your foliar applications, and you are again allowing for nutrition to go in for photosynthesis, and you are really hitting it from both ends, and the output is a highly nutritious, highly nutrient dense fruit. And that's the objective, because that's what brings you all the way back to human health, is high nutritional density. In from the bottom, in from the top. Don't push too much nitrogen, okay? Not necessary. Remember, diverse approach, okay? So that's the best I can do for now. I can take it to any depth you want later, but that was a question that somebody put out there. So hopefully we answered that fairly well for you today. Thanks for joining us at Organic Approach. My name's Eric Morgan.